Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we're talking about submarines. I have finally got my hands on them, and I'm just going to share my opinions with you guys on them. I played them a whole lot over the weekend. I'm going to show you some clips that are going to highlight some of the issues with subs, and then, well, I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think, and if you don't mind, please hit that like button and subscribe. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers, and we're getting very, very, very close to our goal. I think by the time this uploads, we'll only be 400 subs away from that goal, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that, but let's go ahead and get talking about subs now. So, with the addition of submarines, there are several issues that are just, I don't know how they're going to get this to balance. I got some ideas, but I don't know if they're actually doing any of this. So, the basics. Submarines are going to change this game a lot. I would argue more so than the carrier rework. Because we had carriers before, and there are already things in place to counter them. Submarines, as far as right now, there are only two classes in this game that have any chance of countering subs when they're below the surface, and that is destroyers and most light cruisers. It seems that there are, and some heavy cruisers as well, and by that I mean DDs and light cruisers, and some heavy cruisers, but not most heavy cruisers, are equipped with anti-submarine warfare weapons. The European destroyers are going to be a very, 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 very strong candidate for that role, because they are just riddled with ASW weapons, and I do believe that was the intention of the devs when they introduced them into the game. And the American destroyers too, historically during the Atlantic theater in World War II, they were having to do a whole lot of ASW, and you can see on a lot of the American destroyers, they are just riddled with depth charges and other devices to make submarines' lives horrible. If you're not in one of those two ships, you are going to be depending on those two classes in order to save you, because aside from one or two things, there's not a whole lot you can do to combat subs. And besides just ramming them or shooting them right at the surface, which they technically don't ever have to come up to the surface at all in this current iteration. There's nothing you can do about it. And the way that they attack other ships, they're their torpedoes, which, yes, they do lock on, and it's, I don't know what they were thinking when they added this in. The torpedoes, if you get one ping on the enemy ship, they're going to home in on that ping. If you get two pings on the enemy ship, they turn to what they call magnetic torpedoes, where they ignore all torpedo protection, and you can citadel ships with these torpedoes. Citadels with torpedoes, because they magically become magnetic torpedoes and just ignore your torpedo protection. There's a clip, which I'm sure it's played by now, where I just annihilate a Queen Elizabeth's health. It was a bot, but it's a battleship, and battleships, they are completely defenseless against these submarines. Their one defense, their torpedo protection, is ignored if they get a double ping on you, and it is so easy to double ping battleships. If you're good at it, it's easy to double ping anything, but battleships, they're slow, they're not very maneuverable, and it's just, you ping the stern, you ping the bow, and that's it. You're going to get citadel. There's nothing you can do about it. Unless well, not even that. I was going to say, unless the submarine just drops them too close to you, but they do home. Now, they do stop homing within 1 kilometer of the target. And for destroyers and cruisers, that's kind of close, but they're still maneuverable enough to dodge the torpedoes, or at least mitigate most of them. The battleships and aircraft carriers, they can't really do a whole lot. Unless the angle is just really wonky or something, you're going to eat most of them. And it's so ridiculous in my opinion. The only way I could see balancing this whole magnetic torpedo or homing torpedo thing is, if it's just a homing torpedo, it's a normal torpedo that just homes, and your torpedo protection will, take most of the damage off. The magnetic torpedoes where they can get citadels, I don't know. Maybe make it to where if it's a magnetic torpedo, yes, you can get citadel damage, but the damage done by the torpedo is cut down by like, I don't know, 50 or 40 or 30%. Some just reduction in damage since it's a magnetic torpedo. Because right now, this is just wholly unfair. Because, well, depending upon the submarine, you can be just 10 kilometers away underwater, and they have no idea that you're there, and they don't know these torpedoes are coming in, and you just get freaking nuked. They won't know until they're detected. By that time, it's too late to maneuver. But that's pretty rough. That's going to be a big balancing issue. If they release them to the game right now, like this, or whenever they're set to release into the game, it's going to be freaking chaos, and people are just going to stop playing battleships because there's nothing you can do about it. You have to depend on your teammates, and carriers too, because carriers can't even do that much about them if they're not on the surface. If they're on the surface, carriers can nuke the crap out of them, but there's no real reason for them to stay on the surface if they really don't want to, because the way submarines work, for example, during the Halloween event, it was air that limited the sub's time above and below the surface of the water. But now it's electricity, power, and that's a kind of a better concept. But you normally would have to surface to recharge your batteries and go back below the surface. But if you are traveling at a quarter speed, your power will recharge slower than if you're at the surface, but that means you can just stay underwater. So let's say destroyers, for example. In the current meta, destroyers don't live too long, especially if there's a carrier involved. So they're normally dead or like at very low health within the first 10 minutes of the game, 5 or 10 minutes of the game. All a submarine player would have to do is just chill out for the first 5 or 10 minutes or get into position. And then once all the destroyers are gone, it's open range for them, except for maybe a couple of light cruisers. But, yeah, and get this. If a destroyer smokes up and there's a submarine below them and they're spotting the destroyer, he can spot the destroyer in smoke. Yeah. That's gonna be fun. So, there's that. Now, everything else about the update, the art, the graphics, the underwater effects, it's freaking beautiful. The submarines are very well modeled. There's a lot of detail on them. Some of them, you can tell some of the models are still kind of work in progress because not all the animations work. The German and the Soviet submarine, the periscopes do go up and go down when you get to periscope depth and below it and when you surface. The American one doesn't do that yet. I guess it's not finished. But rudders shift now. The propellers, when you go in reverse, they do spin in the other direction, and they do change the speed of their rotation, the faster and slower that you go. And they are going to have to model, I believe, all the ship's rudders to rotate correctly now. And the under the surface, there's kind of a texture there. It's kind of muddy looking. I can't really tell because you don't really see it all that much anyway. But I imagine they're probably going to add a bit more detail underwater. But right now it's really pretty. The explosions underwater, it's a really cool effect. But for some reason, when I was playing early on in PT, they weren't really working right. But the later I played, they started to look better. I don't know. It's just some weird PT glitch. Oh, I do apologize for the replay glitches through all of this. For some reason, the undersea viewpoint doesn't really work in the replay. It's just a bug. Now, submarine versus submarine is very hard for two submarines to really fight each other. And I guess it was designed that way. The homing torpedoes, they work well if you're targeting a surface target. If you're targeting a target beneath the surface, it's a bit more difficult because you kind of have to be at the same level as them. And you're typically very close because these submarines, that their detection ranges are so low. They outspot freaking everything. And these are only the tier 6s too. Keep in mind, me completely annihilating Queen Elizabeth's health and completely just nuking that, I think it was a Trino. These are with tier 6 subs. I don't even want to know what the tier 10s are going to be like. It's going to be freaking rough. But yeah, because the detection range is so low, you just kind of run into them at like 5 kilometers away, 4 kilometers away, and yeah, you kind of have to panic. It's not even really worth getting a lock on the submarine. You kind of just point your bow in the right direction, fire your torpedoes on. They miss, they miss, they hit, they hit. You can kind of just sail off, and while they're trying to turn around, you can kind of escape. But sometimes it is pretty fun to fight subs on the water because it is at very close ranges sometimes. But yeah, as far as the individual submarines, the Cachalot, I'm liking that one the most right now. U-69, it's kind of got the German thing going for it, where it's good at very close ranges because its torpedoes do the most damage out of the 3 you can play right now between the Cachalot, the S1, and the U-69. But all these ships, they got 4 forward torpedo launchers, 2 in the back, and they all work pretty much the same way as far as the homing torpedoes and all that go. The Soviet one, it's more of a mid-range. Its max torpedo range is like 8.6 kilometers. The Cachalot max range is 10 kilometers, and U-69 is like 6.6 kilometers. And, you know, their values all kind of reflect that. Like the U-69's detection range is like 4.4 kilometers, and I think the S1 is like 6-ish, and then the Cachalot's like 7-ish. I don't remember off the top of my head. And of course, the deeper you are in the water, the harder it is for the enemy ships to detect you. Your detection range is much smaller. And when you do get attacked by anti-submarine weapons, which right now it's just depth charges as far as I know, if the deeper you are, obviously, in a submarine, the more it mitigates the damage. And all the submarines have a consumable that allows them to dive to their maximum depth of 80 meters. And when you're that deep, the depth charges pretty much just tickle you. And if you're in the S1, which has a heal, you can repair most of that damage back. Most of it. And yeah, the depth charges, they're pretty effective. The submarine isn't at its maximum depth, and that consumable, it works for like a minute and a half. So you can totally just go to your max depth, go to 1/4 speed, and eventually get out of there. Because when you're at your max depth, you're really hard to detect. And if you, I believe the clip should be playing right now. I'm in, I think it's U-69, and I'm barely taking any damage at this depth. Yeah, it's causing some fires and some floodings, but as here at the end, there's 2 submarines just absolutely pounding, 2 destroyers just absolutely pounding me, and the damage is just so minuscule that I don't really care. And I did pop my damage con early, but it's about to come off cooldown, and the match does end. If that my damage con would have came off cooldown, I just would have popped it and just would have silently sailed away. So, yeah. So overall, the submarines, they're interesting to play. I'm not gonna lie, they're kind of fun to play. It's really unique. I gotta give to Wargaming, they got a lot of cool mechanics here. But these need a whole lot more work, and I do believe there's a lot more for Wargaming to do to them before they go into the live servers. That's why we have these testing events. So, you know, if this was like the version that was about to go live, I would say, yeah, we do need to panic and, you know, maybe start a bit of a uproar, but it's still a far ways off. They are going to be in their own unique mode when they come out. I believe the convoys mode is going to kind of be their thing for a while, and then they're going to go to how they are now, to where they're in a separate battle type, and then they're going to go into the live server. I believe that's what Wargaming is still doing. So these are probably still a year off before we see them in the live game, if I had to guess. So I would, you know, suggest that you go and try it out on the PT server. It's public test. You can sign up on Wargaming's website and download the PT client and try it for yourself to see what it's like. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but there's a lot of cool stuff here. This has the potential to be something good. But if this is what they're going to be like, I would say they would just need their own game mode and not go into like the full game. But like I said, it's still a long ways off. We'll see what happens next. And that's pretty much the basics for submarines. I'll probably go into more of the details of like each sub stats and stuff in a separate video, but as of right now, that's my impressions from the submarine rework. There's a lot of good there. There's a lot that needs work. We will see where it goes. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like I said earlier, please subscribe. We're on our way to 10,000 subscribers, and I'm hoping that we'll get that by the end of the month, which I'm pretty sure we will. You guys have been doing an awesome job with the new subscriptions recently. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Monday and staying healthy. And I hope to catch all of you guys in the next one.